Though you muffle my voice, I speak. Though you clip my wings and cage me, I fly. And though you batter my body, commanding me to kneel before you, I resist. Hello everyone, it's Seji, and today I will be talking about Samira Ahmed's newest book, Internment. I read this a few days ago in Dutch and it was such a beautiful story. Beforehand, I would like to give a trigger warning because this book does contain some violence, but I won't be explicitly talking about that in this review. So let's get started. Internment is set in the near future in America. An anti-Islam law has been introduced, there has been a census to make a list of all Muslims living in America, and more crazy measures have been taken. The story is about a 17-year-old girl called Layla Amin who is an Asian Muslim. Around midnight, she and her parents have their door kicked in. It's the government. They are told that they have 5 minutes to pack their bags because they are going to an internment camp for Muslims. This is happening because, according to the president, Islam is a national security threat. While Layla is in the camp, she and new made friends like Jake, Sohail and Ayesha try to fight for freedom. This was such a unique and important story. I have never read a YA book like this. Whilst inspired by the rise of Islamophobia, it draws parallels between our time and that of the Second World War, mainly the events surrounding the internment of Japanese Americans. In 1942, after Pearl Harbor, around 120,000 Japanese and Japanese Americans had their possessions taken from them, and they themselves were put in internment camps until the end of the war. I think the scariest thing about this story is that it isn't that unrealistic. Nowadays there are so many anti-Islamic sentiments that the book doesn't really make a huge leap. Besides that, it's not like there aren't already internment camps in America. I mean, think about the tender age shelters. The book is written from the perspective of Layla, so you get to experience everything with her. America is everything she's ever known, but yet she's still seen as an enemy of the people. It's extremely painful to see Layla's identity ripped away from her like that. America is seen as a salad bowl where people from different backgrounds come together to become one huge American nation. But in Layla's reality that isn't the case. You can't be an American Muslim. You're either Muslim or American. In the book you also get to see how non-Muslims are dealing with the situation. At one point Layla's neighbor is heading to a book burning holding books written by Layla's father. Also, the parents of Layla's boyfriend all of a sudden don't approve of the relationship, which in my opinion was quite ironic since they themselves were Jewish. It seems like in the months that things started getting worse for Muslims, there weren't a lot of other people who were fighting for their freedom and rights. It made me think about this poem written by a German preacher called Martin Niemöller. It was about how German intellectuals didn't really do much during the rise of the Nazis. First, they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. It often happens that people don't care about injustices until it happens to them. This also happened in the camp. For each unit there were supervisors who were also Muslim. They would then receive privileges for keeping the rest in line. It's crazy to see how people are just willing to throw away their principles for a bit of power and privileges. I felt this quote in the book very fitting. A compass doesn't tell you where you are, and it doesn't tell you where you have to go. It can only point you in a direction. It's up to you to always find your true north. Despite all these horrible things happening in the book, I always had this sense of hope. It was, for instance, very touching to see how Layla and Ayesha always kept each other strong, and they were always there for each other. It was cool to see how the resistance was led by young people. Layla writes stories that got smuggled out of the camp. She and her friends held a hunger strike, and they never gave up. It's interesting to see how many revolutions have been led by youth. I mean, think of the March for Our Lives or the Climate Change March. It's often the people who do not get to have a choice that revolt the most. Internment shows how fragile our democracies truly are and how important it is that we fight for them. Think of it as a game of Jenga. At the beginning it's very easy to take away blocks and the tower will still stand. But there will come a point that you take one block away and everything will come crashing down. Internment makes you question how this possibly could happen. What are the defenses of our democracies and constitutional rights? And how strong are they? Like I said, this was such a beautiful and important story. I cried and I laughed about the bright spots, but in the end I walked away with the hope that there would always be people like Layla, who despite everything would stand for what's right. Either way, thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.